right, welcome back, guys, to a brand new episode of the Pursuit of Progress podcast, the show where real estate, mindset, and momentum collide. As always, I'm Adam, joined by my co-host, Benjamin Adams, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics. I think it is also for Ben, and that's momentum. And starting is always the hardest part. If you think about it, all planes, they burn the most fuel on takeoff, not while cruising. So once you're at altitude, it takes way less energy just to keep going. So the same is true in life, fitness, business. We're going to get into all of that today. Most people burn out before they even really get to that cruising altitude. And a lot of us wonder why. Well, it's because they let bad days stack instead of focusing on easy wins that build that unstoppable momentum. So we're going to give you guys 4 specific strategies today to break inertia, build confidence first, and finally stay consistent. That was a mouthful there. But again, guys, really excited to share this episode with you. And before we do, just want to hear a little bit about Ben and catch up with him because he just got back from a little trip to the West Coast. Anxious to hear about it.
But yeah, you know what? Thank you so much, Adam. Excited to be back talking about momentum today. Something that I'm a really, really big believer in, but it's good to be back here in the Mile High City. Being in California, I haven't been out there in a couple of years, and we were in the Santa Barbara area. And that was really my first time out to Santa Barbara. Let me tell you, oh my gosh, what a beautiful town, the beach walk, the rolling hills, just absolutely stunning. It's funny, my kids before the trip were unsure that they wanted to go to college. And then we toured Santa Barbara, walked around downtown, went on campus there at UCSB. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to Santa Barbara.
Yeah. And what's Santa Barbara cost a year for out-of-state tuition?
I think out of state is like $45,000.
Okay, so not as bad as some of these other schools we were chatting about on a previous episode, but still, that's insane. It's a lot of money.
I looked up admission rates, and I think it's like 35% get in, so it's not outrageous, still challenging. Some of these other California schools, UCLA, USC, Stanford, the acceptance rate is 5% or below. This one, not as difficult. I told my daughter, though, that, hey, you want to go here? Let's get you a running scholarship. That sounds great. Yeah.
And you can train year-round on the beach.
Yeah. That's right. And the campus is literally on the beach. The beach is right there.
Yeah, I've heard that
how
that
fun would that
campus
be
is
to
awesome.
go to a college where you're living on the beach? That'd be amazing.
Yeah, kind of a alternative to Boulder where we both went for our college careers as far as a lot of temptation between the mountains for Boulder and the beach for Santa Barbara.
That's right.
But let's go ahead and get into it, guys. So again, we're going to be talking about 4 specific points, principles, just ways that we hopefully can share with you just to build that momentum that's hopefully going to stick. And Ben and I are both personally, always dealing with this ourselves. We're going to get a little bit vulnerable with this episode for you guys, just chatting about just how we've had challenges and struggles with this in the past. And I do still to this day. So momentum is one of those things, though, that I think is very high on the list of attributes that can really make a big difference in personal and business life. So let's just jump right into it, though. So point number 1 is the takeoff principle. So kind of similar to what I said during the intro about how all planes burn the most fuel on takeoff. That's basically what this one's about. So, again, starting is what burns the most energy, but staying stuck before building up and getting to cruising altitude, that's going to cost you guys way more. So another way to look at it is, most people think consistency is hard. It's really not. What's hard is starting over every 2 weeks. So that's really important just to understand that difference. Think of it, though, like flying. Again, you burn the most fuel just getting off the ground. But once you're cruising at 30,000 feet, smooth sailing, a lot less friction, and hopefully you're in a place where you're just continuing to build that momentum and find success in whatever it is that you're doing. Before I kind of talk about a couple other points on this first point, before I talk about a few other things on this first point, Ben, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's absolutely true. Right now, my girlfriend Grace and I were training for a half marathon, and up until 2 months ago, she had never run or done any consistent training at all. And so when she started training, what we did, our first step was we built out a calendar for her where we planned every day over the next 12 weeks or the next 3 months so she could really train for this half marathon. Started off at a mile, then went to 2 miles, 3, 5. Now she's done a long run of over 10 miles. But you know what's interesting? The hardest run that she did was that first week, just doing 1 mile, exactly to your point. Because when you have never done something before, the act of doing it is very uncomfortable. And a lot of times when folks are trying to lose weight or they're trying to get into shape, their body is going through changes, adjustments. They've never behaved like that. So not only are they doing a new activity, but they're also just the act of running a mile when you've never run a mile. And I told her, this is the most difficult run you will ever do, is the very first run. Same with my daughter. She did a 10-mile long run for the very first time in June earlier this year. And since then, she's done about 10. The
Wow.
very hardest one that she did was the first one. And it's to exactly this point. And that's also why so many people get discouraged, is because they don't understand that they're going through the hardest part of whatever their new habit is. It's kind of breaking into it is the hardest part. And that's why for me, like when I go, I was just on vacation in Santa Barbara. I would rather just stay in routine for me. I don't know if you feel the same way. I love to work out in the morning with you. I love to go for my runs in the evening. And I've just found that mentally, emotionally, physically, I would rather just stay in routine when I'm on vacation than get out of routine for 2 weeks and then have my mind be messing with me. I feel lazy. I don't like how I feel. A lot of times my body will start to change in that very short time. So it's like, you know what? Now when I travel, I just do my very best to stay in routine. I'm not always getting up at 5:30 a.m. Sometimes I'm sleeping in a little bit, but I'm still trying to get those things done that are important to me because I don't want to lose that momentum.
Hmm. Yeah, and that was the other point I was going to share before moving on, is just even you going on vacation affected my momentum. You know what I mean? Like, and that's nothing against you. It's just my self-discipline. Like it's just crazy how, we've worked out every morning for 5 years, off and on, with trips and different things going on in our personal lives, but basically for the last 5 years or more. And even after that amount of time, it still only takes me a couple days sometimes to fall out of that momentum and to kind of get back into that place where it's like pulling teeth just to get myself to go to the gym in the morning without you. So
Mhm.
just kind of wanted to share that just personal note with everybody that's listening or watching on YouTube today, that, you know, people talk about, it takes, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, those different numbers they throw out to how long it takes to build up a habit that sticks. Well, I'm here to tell you that, I still struggle with it even after doing it for years. And it's very easy to fall out of momentum, but hopefully you can get back into it a little bit quicker and just understand that this is part of the process.
Yeah, it's funny because I use a lot of running analogies because I'm training right now for a half marathon. My daughter is training for cross country season, and I'm also a coach as well. But sometimes kids on the team will be like, 6 miles, it's so far, it's so difficult. I don't know if I can do that. And I always share like the easiest way to make 6 miles not a big deal is by going and running 8 miles. Go run 8, 9, 10 miles, and then you'll feel a little bit differently about 6 miles. Once you've got that momentum, though, all of a sudden 6 miles isn't a big deal at all.
A perspective change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's jump into point two. What do you got for us?
Yeah, on point two, really, really powerful point here. Winners don't have bad days, only bad moments. A bad moment doesn't have to ruin your whole day. Everyone slips. You eat the chips, you skip the workout, you waste an hour scrolling. But the difference between winners reset immediately. A bad moment for a loser, I ate half a bag of chips. A winner move, cool. Brush your teeth, grab an apple, and get back on track. Get back on track. A bad moment doesn't have to turn into a bad day. You decide how long the slip lasts. I'm a really big Coach Prime fan, as you know.
Literally
And
about to say the same thing, man. Yep.
okay, go ahead. I'll
No,
let you
no,
share.
go for it. Go for it.
One thing that he talks about is he doesn't have bad days.
He doesn't have bad hours.
Coach Coach Prime does not have bad days. He doesn't have bad hours. He might have a bad 15 minutes, but he does not have bad days. And that has had just a tremendous impact on me. And I think it's so important to be rooted in the right things and have your values really aligned. And the reason he doesn't have bad days is because he recognizes all that he is thankful for. He is living from a place of gratitude. And when you have that gratitude, you can work through the moments. The bad moments don't need to turn into bad days. And it is a maturation process. I've totally changed my perspective now where, with my career, with my kids, I now look at these challengings that come into my life. And instead of being angry or upset or getting super stressed, having anxiety. And sometimes I will still have some of those things because I care about my kids, the decisions they're making, my career, my customers, all of that stuff is still there. But I now look at those as blessings because it gives me an opportunity to grow as a dad and a leader and a coach. And I have an opportunity to grow in something greater than myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I know I've brought up my grandpa a few different times on past episodes, but that's just one thing I always remember and really looked up to him about was just this endless amount of optimism where looking at failure, looking at setbacks as just an opportunity to understand what maybe you need to do a little bit differently. And the most successful
Mhm.
people in the world are the ones that just look at failure in a different lens and just get that 1% better every time that they do fail. And in fact, maybe not even using the word fail, maybe taking that completely out of their vocabulary and just looking at it as a more of a lesson, just something that just didn't work exactly like you were planning it to, but learn from it, adapt, make that 1% change. And if you do that, no matter what you're working on, you're going to be in the top 5% within a matter of months. It's
I
very,
think
very
that's a really
important.
good point. Not calling those things failures and looking at them as lessons. I think a lot of people are afraid to fail, and when you're afraid to fail, you're not willing to try something new or take action, and it prevents you from stepping into the arena. You got to be willing to take an L because if you can't take the L, you'll never get the W.
Yep, I love that. Before we move on to the third point, just really quick, you guys, want to have a quick break for our sponsor of the week. So, this is actually a sponsor from both Ben and myself. We're doing a little self promotion here because right after this podcast gets finished being recorded today, we're actually hosting another brand new 2025 Homebuyer Masterclass. These are being held every single month. We're trying to get to the point of doing them every other week just because they are getting a ton of value and a lot of participation, a lot of attendance. We cap it at 20 people per webinar. It's online, it's free. So you guys got to make sure you grab a ticket early so you don't miss out on the next one. If you guys are curious about that, just go to webinar.adamsoulsdenver.com. It's free. Again, it's online, it's live. And we share a ton of really just actionable tips and tactics that people that we know, including our clients, friends, family, people that are today still winning despite this pretty unique market here in Denver, Colorado. So we'd love to see you guys on that next one. Again, it's webinar.adamsoulsdenver.com. All right, Ben, let's jump into point number 3.
All right, point number 3, stack easy wins to build momentum. Confidence doesn't come from big wins, it comes from small ones you can repeat. Stop trying to overhaul your whole life in 1 week. Do small, simple things that you can win daily at. Make your bed. Drink a full glass of water before coffee. Send that one email you've been avoiding. Do 10 push ups before bed. These wins sound basic, but they create a domino effect because once you're winning at something, you'll want to keep stacking the wins.
Yep.
Momentum isn't motivation, momentum is evidence that you're moving. I think this is so powerful. And that's one reason that I like to start my day with wins. It's part of my routine. I get up at the same time every day. I go straight to the gym. I work out with you. I come home. I make my bed. I will then read my devotional. I'll pray. I will read my book. And so by the time that I take the kids to school, I've already done 5 or 6 things that have really that I really value and really impact my life in a positive way. And so all of a sudden, then I'm going into my workday and I have this positive momentum because all of these things that I care about, I've already done. It's not even 8 a.m. yet. And then when I start my workday, I already have my to-dos organized a lot of times from the night before as far as what my tasks are, in what order those need to get done. And so I open my work journal and I get to work, just start crossing stuff off. And a lot of times, a lot of those tasks they're not crazy, but I will even put down just small tasks, check in with this underwriter, text this customer. All of a sudden, it's 1 hour and I've done 15 things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many different directions we can go on this one. I think the only thing I'll add is we both look up a lot to Andy Frisella. He started First Form. It's just a supplement company, but he also has a podcast and just very top tier influencer as well as just coach, just somebody that really motivates a ton, thousands, if not millions of people at this point. But he has this power list, which is basically just thinking of 5 kind of non-negotiables daily that you're going to really have as a top priority to get done no matter what. These 5 things can be whatever they need to be, all totally dependent on what is most important to you. But I think there's just some intense value with having it written down, and kind of like what you're saying with your work journal. And I often use a little phrase: if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And it just having it written down somewhere not only allows you just to make sure that you stay on track, you stay on pace. If all of a sudden you maybe have a break, you get out of a meeting 30 minutes early, instead of just kind of sitting there twiddling your thumbs, not really sure what direction to go with that little bit of time, by having something like this just written down, you're able to still be more productive by knocking out some of these other things in those gaps, as well as just not letting the day, get the best of you and forget about half the stuff that is really
Hmm.
important to you. Yet, since you don't have it written down, or you just haven't made it a priority somewhere in your on your desk, or just in your life, where it just doesn't happen, and then at the end of the day, you're kind of like, man, I don't know what happened today. What did I even do? You can avoid a lot of that kind of uncertainty, and maybe even not, I don't want to use the word depression, but just I have days where I just feel like I just was busy all day, but I didn't accomplish anything. And I think a great way to avoid that is, again, just by having it written down, having some form of a power list, some way
Yeah.
of having some non-negotiables.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's exciting and powerful when you can look down at your list and just see all of the things that you've gotten done. Really, really powerful. And I call mine not my power list, but I kind of refer to it as my values. And so, what are those things that I truly value that bring me fulfillment? And those are the things that I start my day off with. And earlier this year, I added just writing down 4 things that I'm grateful for. I've now included that in my morning routine, and that takes 30 seconds literally. But when I don't do that, or if there's a day that I feel like I'm in a rush and I don't write down the things that I'm thankful for, I don't feel the same. And so just being aware, having awareness of what you value and what gives you that momentum, ultimately that's where that confidence comes from.
The only other thing I'll just add to that too, just because it just kind of popped in my head, but for any of our female listeners or viewers out there, I definitely feel like there is this difference between men and women and just how they operate. Obviously that's a no-brainer with a lot of different aspects of life. But I just noticed with my girlfriend how, her and I are a little bit different on that, where I think males a lot of times are very task oriented. We're kind of those worker bees, or we just like to have direction. We like to have a list, some form of, accomplishment, sense of accomplishment by knocking things off that list. A lot of females kind of operate a little bit differently. So, if maybe we're not speaking your language right now, that's okay. But I would just still, though, push back and just say, at least just maybe give it a try for a week and just see if you notice any differences with your productivity, or also just your happiness or your sense of accomplishment at the end of the day with what is most important to you. All
Yeah, that's great.
right, well, let's wrap up with the fourth and final point. This is a big one
I
too.
call you Dr. Love.
Dr. Love, baby, I can the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. It's Barry White. Point number 4: build a why that pulls you forward. A really good way to think of this one is weak reasons basically turn into, weak habits. You really need to have something bigger than just, I want to have a six pack, or I want to lose weight, or I really want to be rich and wealthy and more successful. You need to have a why behind that. And that's something that I think a lot of people kind of shrug off to the side, or just and I've been faulty at this too, where it's just like kind of this feely type thing versus something that's kind of more tangible. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to like go down this, go meditate for 2 weeks and come out knowing what your why is. But
Hmm.
another way to look at this that I've found valuable for myself is, instead of thinking about why, also thinking about just the amount of pain, and using pain as a tool to motivate you to be more consistent and build that momentum. So, maybe it's your self confidence. If you're overweight, you're just, man, I'm just sick of looking at myself in the mirror. Well, maybe that's that pain. And if that pain gets to be to a certain level and gets too much, then you're finally going to take action. So there's ways that maybe you can even utilize that pain to figure out kind of ways to trick yourself into being more consistent and building up that momentum. That's just something that I've thought about in the past. But, just one last thing before I pass it over to you. If your why is small, you're going to give up at your first inconvenience. If you don't have enough skin in the game, if you don't have enough of a why or a reason behind what you're trying to accomplish, it's going to be super easy just to shrug it off and fail and just give up on whatever that is. You got to think of ways to really make it, more serious. One of the guys that we've kind of collected some of these points today from, Dan Martell. He's an awesome guy. Definitely check him out as well on social. And he has a podcast as well called the Martell Method. But he talks about, if your kids were in danger, you'd move a lot differently. If you got a phone call and said, your daughter just broke her leg, she's on the side of the road, you're going to drop everything and you're going to go address that. You're not going to have this, oh, okay, I'll go there this afternoon and help her out. It's that pain is so great, that urgency is so great that you're going to take action. You're going to make whatever it is happen. So just think of, not obviously your daughter getting hurt, but just think of something out there that's going to make you push harder and just make sure that you don't quit.
We all have these things that we want to do. And I see a lot of people that they're doing them for the wrong reasons. They want to have their income be a certain level, or it's all about the money. They want to be, and I think that's what I've learned is that you have to have bigger reasons than just wanting to make a lot of money. That does not work. That's not a meaningful enough reason. For example, myself, with my mortgage banking job, I believe that what I do really matters. And I believe that I have the ability to impact individuals for the next 10, 15, 20, even 30 years. The actions that we're taking today have the potential to impact this person the next 30 years. And when you look at it from that perspective, that is incredibly empowering. What I do matters. I could be changing this person's life, giving them an opportunity to build equity, build wealth, restructuring their debt so they can send their kids to college, help them achieve their dreams and goals. A lot of people, they want to go back to the gym. Why do you want to go back to the gym? Why do you want to lose the weight? Really learning to answer those questions honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we leave that one there, but there's so many other directions we can go on that one. But there's a great book, Simon Sinek, just is it The Power of Why or Finding Your Why? Now I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I read that a long time ago, but that's, a good starting point if anybody's just kind of unsure about that or feeling like, well, I'm a bartender. My job doesn't affect people like that. Well, I would push back and say maybe it does. It's just you're addressing it wrong. You're addressing it in a different lens. You could totally change people's lives no matter what you're doing, just with a smile on your face. Maybe it's just asking that person how they're doing today, just taking that extra initiative just to be a kind person. It could be as simple as that.
This is a personal belief that I have, and I believed that every single person on this earth is called to do not just average things, good things, not great things, but incredible things. They're called to live an incredible life. But how many of us actually step into that life? And so we're here to have an impact, to make a difference, to be a difference maker, to live a rewarding, fulfilling life, to give back, to impact the planet in a positive way. And when you look at your life and who you are in that lens, again, it just empowers you. You matter. Your words matter. Your actions matter. That's
Love that.
empowering.
Very empowering. Got me hyped up there, bud. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are our 4 points. But here's the big takeaway. Push harder at the start. Get to cruising altitude, and staying there gets easier. Reset fast when you have mess ups. Bad moments don't have to turn into bad days. Stack small wins. Momentum beats motivation every time. Know your why. If it doesn't move you, it won't change you. If this hits home, share it with someone who needs a reset. And if you haven't already, check out the full video versions on YouTube. We drop new episodes every Friday. Have a positive and productive week ahead. And remember, momentum is built, not gifted. This is Benjamin Adams for Adam Lang on the Pursuit of Progress podcast. Love you guys.
See you guys.